Austin, what's up, bud?
Not much. Just looking forward to being back on the mic and delivering cautious coffee, hot piping coffee.
Yeah, we got to get some momentum going. It's okay though, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean a little behind the scenes. It's taken a while to record season 2, but we're gonna do it.
Yeah, we're gonna grind through it.
Absolutely.
I have every intention of releasing it. We'll do a little how Netflix is releasing you in chunks.
That's a very interesting series, and I think it kind of draws parallels to what we want to talk about.
Yeah, a little infidelity,
today.
A little long-term infidelity,
minus the murder.
Yeah, no murder involved.
Yeah.
Although I think that is one of the questions that we'll get into at some point. Not quite murder, but the consequences.
The consequences of murder.
The possible consequences of infidelity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you leave this off. This is something that you wanted to discuss. This was kind of on your agenda for this season, and I think it should be interesting.
Because it's a real thing, Austin.
I know.
It's a real thing, and it's so wild. And this is a little side quest. Okay, a little sidebar. Recently, there was a body found near Memorial Park.
I heard about that.
Okay, but
what
think
are the
about
details?
That. But think about that. I don't have many details, but the fact that there's a body and there's possibly a murder in this area, and there's, I don't know, in a 10-mile radius, somebody like hangs out with them, plays golf with them, goes to work with them, works out with them, whatever.
Yeah, and just to give a little context about this area, so Memorial Park is a heavily trafficked area in Houston. It's a large park. There's running trails, there's golf course, there's a lot of nature, hiking. I think you could do some mountain biking if you want. And I think this body was found relatively close to the hiking or walking area. Yeah. And so that was surprising to a lot of people. And apparently it was like partly decomposed. So it had been there for a while.
Yeah. So anyway, just insane that the fact that there may be a murderer among us.
It's not me.
Not me either. And hopefully no one.
We'll cover that on season 3 of Cautious
Hopefully no one, any of us knows. But back to the infidelity piece is like, there's probably a ton of it out there. And I like to say, well, I guess I was having conversations with some buddies, and we were just talking about how mistresses have kept families together for millennia.
How do you say keeping families together?
As opposed to tearing the family apart.
Okay.
When we're talking about long-term infidelity. So this obviously isn't like a fling, people get found out and then, all goes to shit, so to speak. This is to
give another Netflix reference, we're talking more Emily in Paris type long-term.
Okay.
Mistress, right?
I'm not familiar, but yes, more than likely where, the man dies and the mistress is at the funeral.
Okay.
And no one knows who she is, but she has an awful lot to say about the man that died.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what's your theory on why they keep the world running?
My theory of why they keep the family together, right? Because the man doesn't want to tear his family apart, right? He doesn't want to leave his wife. He rarely ever wants to leave his wife or his mistress, but his mistress does things that his wife may not necessarily do and keeps him happy. And we live in a very oppressed society where a lot of the things that maybe when you're courting your spouse, you put on an act. There's a facade of some sort. You guys didn't go through the proper counseling channels, and you want to give your wife a fairy tale, and you want to be her knight in shining armor, but you were keeping some dark secrets, and you weren't totally able to communicate with her. So the mistress comes in and she soothes all your kinks, whatever that wild stuff is that you're into, and she allows you to be free. And I guess I should say that this isn't necessarily gender specific, right? A woman could be in the same boat.
So when you say this, like long-term infidelity, are you talking about sexual relationships? Are you talking about, maybe someone different to stimulate your mind?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a thing, right? It doesn't even have to be sexual, right? To kind of be labeled infidelity.
But does that, like, I guess for me, okay, what is the definition of infidelity? Because if it's just someone to have a conversation with, can it be platonic, or does it have to automatically move into that infidelity world?
I think for the intent of this show,
Yeah.
this podcast, we're not going to get bogged down in semantics, but they're having sex. Okay. Sex is happening. They have a connection. This is not their wife. This is not their husband.
Mm-hmm.
They're sexing.
Okay.
And maybe they knew each other for years and there was always a spark and they never explored it. But then at some point they took it to the next level and, they let something happen for a number of years.
It's interesting. I mean, 50% of marriages end in divorce in the West.
Yeah.
In the West and in the US, Europe. I mean, if you're not happy, leave.
That's easy to say.
It's easy, but
if you've built something up, say you've been married for 5 years,
mm-hmm.
We're going to go 10 years. You're 10 years in, 5 to 10 years in, you have, a home together, you have assets together, you have, you've rooted yourselves in each other's lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to say, just leave. It's easy.
No, it's not.
Yeah. It's easy to say, just leave.
I think it's hard to get out. And so I think,
like I said, it's easy to say to just leave. It's hard to get out. So you get the mistress or the mister.
Doesn't that just make things worse?
Maybe.
I don't know. I totally get like what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Because there are 7 billion people on this planet.
Yeah. 8
billion people on this
billion.
planet. This whole thought of there's only one person that you're compatible with, it's probably not accurate, right? It's
soulmate garbage.
It's the people that you, I guess, are within your circle, right? Like, you might have someone here, right, that is incredibly special, gets you emotionally, physically, mentally. And then if you were to then spend, I don't know, let's call it 5 years in a different country on the opposite side of the world, you could find someone else there that mentally stimulates you in all of this, right? So this whole thought process that there's only one person for you, I do think it's probably flawed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the issue is, I think there are people that stick together in marriages that do it for the wrong reasons, right?
Yep.
They want to stick out of marriage because, what about the kids?
What's the reason people used to get married?
To improve their family's positioning.
Did love have anything to do with it?
No, it was arranged marriages. I mean, and that still happens in a large part of the world.
It was a business agreement. So that's more like, I understand people go into a lot of marriages thinking that it's love this, love that, not really understanding how serious it is and how like it is beneficial to be married. It's wonderfully beneficial.
You can go back to the podcast episode where you and Katie were talking about the finance and the tax breaks.
There you go.
So that was Katie's thought behind it.
So why tear all that down though? Because you're going to have to unwind that. You're going to have to unwind that if you just leave. You just say, you simply, well, that's not the reason. That's not the whole reason why I got married in the first place. So I can understand the argument of someone going in, staying in their marriage, but having a mister or mistress. And I'm not going to demonize them or judge them.
Yeah, the problem though, that's incredibly selfish, right?
That's you.
So if
I disagree. I disagree that that's incredibly selfish. I think it's incredibly selfish to tear down what you've built, especially if you have children.
Yeah, but okay, I get what you're saying there, but it's incredibly, like, say that you have...
You seem triggered,
Say
Austin.
that you have a wife, and then you have a mistress, right?
Yes.
Does your wife know about the mistress?
No.
So that's incredibly selfish, right? What if she were to find out?
But my mistress makes me happy, and I go home to my wife, and I treat her better.
I'm not saying that your mistress hypothetically doesn't make you happy, but what would that do to your wife who thinks that everything's great? And then she finds out that, oh, shoot, DeRae has been, he's had a mistress for 10 years. Like, does she now think that everything was a lie? Does she think it's fake? What does that do to her psyche?
I think there's definitely some risk involved. And that's one of my questions, right? I had a friend of mine who had an extramarital affair, and not on me to judge him, demonize him, but I was concerned for his safety. Okay.
Why?
So some questions, because it's, you've seen some of these crime shows, some crimes of passion.
Of course.
First question, like, is it worth blowing up your marriage or your family?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you choose the wrong Mr. or mistress. Do you love her? So do you have is it fogging your ability to stay focused on your wife or your husband? What would you do if the other person found out? So that brings us back to your point, right? And then kind of all the things it draws into question about the whole sanctity of the marriage. Like, was it real? What's fake? Bigger question though. What's the primary purpose of marriage? And who put this narrative around marriage that it's all for love and this, one big happy family, when historically, Austin, the facts being the facts,
it's procreating and elevating family status.
Yes. Yeah. Security. And at a certain point, it's like, well, that's important, but I also have needs because I'm a human.
So that's interesting. I hate to draw this conclusion, but to me, that's really interesting. So I'm not saying like reality TV is something that we should bring into this conversation, but there's a new show on Netflix, and I can't remember it, aren't you? Yeah, but I can't remember the name. But it's a competition for couples to be like, the last one standing, right? Yeah. And the whole side thing is, to find your like connection, right, among this group, and the people that are truly connected, I guess, win a prize. And you have some people that are on the show that are, maybe it's just for the TV, that are trying to find that connection. Then you have other people that are like, hey, I don't really like you. You don't really like me. But if we stick together, we can win this thing and come out ahead. Mm-hmm. That to me is kind of like what you're talking about, right? Okay. Like, the power couple, the partnership, yes. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Uh-huh. I think that is almost what you're talking about, right? Because I mean, the Clintons, for example, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of thought that, Bill has been maybe not the most...
no judgment, Bill Clinton.
Yeah, no judgment. There's the whole Monica Lewinsky thing. Yeah. There's rumors and speculation about him and Jeffrey Epstein. And for them, the Clintons sticking together has created a incredibly powerful family in the United States.
Yeah. So why would you blow that up?
I mean, that's a question for Hillary Clinton, because she very well could have.
She could have, but she didn't. She's smart. That's why.
Well, I do think that's a really interesting question when you look at those two, because for them, there had to have been some sort of mutual understanding. Yeah. Right. If she would have divorced him, would her political profile have gone to the point where, she was a senator of New York, and then where she was the Secretary of State, and then the Democratic nominee for president? Would all of that have happened had she gone through a nasty, very public divorce?
Mm-hmm. No.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably not.
I think maybe in these situations, it makes sense if there's power at stake, mm-hmm. right? But I think when you remove the power element and everyone's equal, and you go into a marriage that is quote unquote loving, and you're doing it for the right reasons, mm-hmm. And then you throw in a mistress that's incredibly selfish. I mean, you're clearly hiding something, right? And so you're not giving your full self. And I think if you're not, it's time to check out. Like, just get a divorce, go through the process, because if you also run the risk, right, of you don't know what that crime of passion is going to be like when she finds out or comes home, like catching, you in bed with somebody else.
I don't disagree that, I said earlier, there's some risk involved, but there's risk in almost everything you do. There's risk in getting married. There's risk in getting divorced. There's risk in having a mistress or a mister. There's risk in driving to work every day.
So why go through the whole process of getting married?
I ask people that same question all the time. Like, you went through all that trouble to get married, to like court that woman or that man,
right?
And you guys had a big, wonderful wedding. You invited all those people. You dealt with all the headaches, and then you turn around, you get divorced. How about that? That's like the last option. I would say like Mr. and Mistress it's an option somewhere in the middle.
I mean, the Church of England was started because somebody wanted the divorce.
Come on, man. I'm just facts here. There's no romance. There's no fairy tale here. I'm just looking at the fact that there are whole families born, whole second families on the other side of town that exist, that are, people that are products of those types of situations.
Which is actually kind of hilarious now with the onset of DNA testing.
Yeah.
23andMe and finding out. So here, okay, I kind of got a story on this. So I have done the 23andMe, and there's some people in the family tree line that we recognize the names.
Mm-hmm.
We know, okay, this is on my mom's side, this is on my dad's side. When trying to plan out the family tree, I think I've identified where my grandfather goes, and I think I've identified where my grandmother goes, just based on last names, locations, everything like that. Well, if you put my grandfather where we think he is, and you go on the family tree, it shows, and again, this is not 100% reliable, right? The trees could deviate in some ways in actuality.
Yeah.
But if you look at the tree, it shows that he has a sibling. And he was an only child. And I brought that up after looking at it because I was like, I swear this is where my grandfather's line is. It makes the most sense because there's no other explanation. And there's an extended tree.
I wouldn't doubt it.
There. And, my grandfather recently passed. Mm-hmm. Great grandparents died, 20 years ago. And then I told my mom, and my mom was like, there's no way. Nanny and granddad wouldn't have done that. And I was thinking, well, you don't know that in that specific situation. And then, maybe they had kids when they were in, I don't know, maybe they had a kid when they were in high school, gave it up for adoption.
Okay. Yeah, that's a possibility.
Or maybe there was an extramarital affair. I don't know. But to me, it's kind of crazy because there could have been someone out there that, I don't know, my grandfather maybe had a sibling out there that we don't know. So I don't know. I do think it's interesting. And
I won't disagree that, it is partly selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's the alternative? The alternative is you get a divorce. Another alternative is that you do go to like marriage counseling. You guys try to work through whatever those issues are, whatever that thing is that's driving you to feel like you need someone else. Right. But I don't think, I'll say, like, if you make it through those first 5 years and you guys start rooting one another in each other's lives, and you're building something that's going to go more long term, like maybe that Mr. or mistress doesn't go the entire time. I mean, it's funny. It makes for good comedy, good drama.
So interestingly enough, MRS, the abbreviation, is actually short for mistress. If you get to that 5 year point and you realize, okay, you're not happy, there's some sort of void, and you don't want to go through the divorce.
Yeah.
Why don't you just talk and have like an open understanding that, hey, maybe we need to take the Bill and Hillary Clinton route?
Yeah. There's also a risk there, right? Because there's a risk there where she doesn't want that, where now she looks at you totally differently, or he looks at you totally differently, and like, I'm not enough.
But like, I just don't understand the secrecy side of things. Like, why is that the better alternative?
Because people don't have the their egos are too big to where they want to be everything to another person. So they'd be unwilling.
So you've had a mistress for 30 years.
Yeah.
You die.
Yes.
She shows up at the funeral
because she loved you.
All of your family.
Yeah.
Does that just not destroy your entire family after you've passed?
You're dead. What do you care?
I mean, that's the ultimate dick move.
No, it's not. You've already built something though. You've everyone.
Yeah, can you? Sure, you've built it, but by you dying and not being transparent with people, did you not just like tear it all down?
I don't think so. I think that's much easier to get over than it never taking place in the first place.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I have a different perspective.
I'm not for tearing anything down. If you start building it, keep building it. Go straight Bob the Builder on it. And whatever gets you through, do you. It's a free country. You have free will. Ideally, you would have that conversation, right? And take the Bill and Hillary Clinton route. But human nature, and historically, humans aren't rational, aren't that rational?
Yeah.
You know? If they were rational, they would go into it understanding that, well, marriage is like love isn't enough to get married. And your love is going to wane, right? It's going to hit peaks.
It's going to have ebbs and flows.
Ebbs and flows.
Good days and bad days. And just like anything else in life.
Yeah. I'm not condoning. I'm not saying like, go get a mistress, go do it. But there's
one takeaway from this podcast. It's DeRae endorses the idea that everyone should have their mistress.
I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that the facts are that misters and mistresses have been keeping families together, where whatever was missing in that relationship has kept, everyone under the same roof.
I just think that's a really bold take, though. I mean,
because I'm a bold person.
I understand, but
look at me.
But you're
very bold.
I understand that, but okay. I still think there's got to be some sort of data out there that shows that mistresses probably destroy more families than they save.
It's a secret, Austin. There have been so many secrets that exist, even in the founding of this country, right? It doesn't matter. Organizations.
Oh, there's secrets that exist now that keep this country going.
Organizations, secrets, families, secrets, individuals, secrets. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, I just don't know that secrets are. I mean. Yeah, I think top secret.
What if someday you find out that your dad has had a mistress for the last...
He doesn't even have friends.
that makes him even more suspicious. Because he doesn't fellowship with any of his friends. So like,
look, I see his Netflix history. I see when he's on Netflix. Like, my dad does not have a mistress.
I'm just saying,
guarantee it.
But what I'm saying is, like, what if you found that out when at some point in the future? Would that make you look at your father any differently?
Yeah, 100%.
Would you have preferred that he blew up your family? You wouldn't have got the experiences that you got growing up.
Yeah. So. I mean, it would completely think that everything that he did and said to me was a lie. And that, if any advice that he had, I would question it. It would just, I don't know, it would fuck me up. Even if I found that out after, I don't see any positive that would come from it. And I think that, like, I understand what you're saying about, like, the secrecy side of things, but I think that exists in a vacuum. Like, I think in reality, the truth always comes out.
I highly disagree with that.
I think there's a difference between top military secrets, but somebody always opens their mouth. Like, you get seen out in public. I mean, everyone has a cell phone now. Everyone has a camera. Like,
yeah, we're talking about now, but I'm talking about when they didn't have.
Yeah, but this podcast is about reality, not like historical conversations on like the Clintons.
Yeah,
like,
fair enough. But historically, for the majority of human existence, right, that's been a thing.
Yeah, because cell phones and cameras didn't exist everywhere.
Yeah, so now you have to tighten up. Tighten up, folks.
What's the takeaway here?
I think I had something to share about famous...
Was it your friend?
Mr. and Mistress. No, it was maybe Hepburn.
Okay.
She had like a 27, almost 30-year affair with Spencer Tracy. Let me get her first name right.
You talking Audrey Hepburn?
Nope. Catherine
Hepburn. Okay.
Catherine Hepburn. I want to get the names right. 27 years, Spencer Tracy. He was married the whole time. He didn't want to divorce his wife because he was Catholic. Never seen in public, but when he got sick, she took a 5-year break from her career and looked after him until he passed. Obviously, this is in the 60s, 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking and not saying that you can't have a second person, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, I just don't understand the point of leading someone through this false life. Like, because here's the issue that I have.
What's the false life, Austin?
Because your mistress knows the situation. Mm-hmm. She knows that you're married.
Yes.
She knows that you have kids.
Yep.
She knows everything about what's going on. Your wife has no clue.
Yep.
She's in the dark.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely selfish to put her in that position because, you know, she finds out. You probably lose the kids, access, you know, to the kids.
You lose the kids anyway if you got a divorce.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, pretty much.
You could have split custody.
You'd have split custody even if it did get found out then.
Yeah, but instead of like every other week, it's now once a weekend.
No, that doesn't matter. That's regardless of why you get divorced, it won't matter.
I don't know. I just think there's
the fact that you got divorced is going to do far more damage.
Yeah.
You run the risk. You keep your family together. Everyone's under the same roof.
So here's the takeaway here. Don't get married. Or if you do get married, have a prenup.
Okay, there we go. Yes. Get married, but go into it understanding what marriage is. Like at its foundation. We had an episode about that, right?
Yep.
Like you know, it's going to position you. You're going to be better off married. That's my belief. I think marriage is a beautiful and a wonderful thing.
There's a reason why every person that runs for president is married, and everyone looks at who the first lady or first gentleman might be.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
You can't have a batshit crazy person as your spouse and be elected. I don't know. We've seen 2016 things can change.
All I'm saying is like, you know, hey, since Trump got in, you never know what could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like.
No judgment.
If you're bored,
America.
if you need more fire in your life, just move on. Like, save everyone the hassle.
That is the most square thing. And I would totally expect Austin to say that.
I mean, just...
It's not all black and white, pal.
I just think there's more harm.
Yeah, there's more. There's color. There's a whole lot of color in life.
I guarantee you, like 85% of the murder documentaries that are out there are because someone cheated on somebody and the wife found out.
It's a risk you take.
I mean, if you just want to keep producing murder documentaries on Netflix, listen to DeRae.
You know, there are also documentaries about like road rage and
name me one good Netflix documentary.
Bullying.
One good Netflix documentary that went viral about road rage.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there one for infidelity?
Yeah, Katie actually just told me about this one that happened in, I think, Collin County up in Dallas.
Yeah.
Apparently there was a movie made about it. Apparently they're making another movie about it.
Hey, no
risk.
It was
about a mistress.
No risk, no reward.
So there's one takeaway that you have had from this podcast episode is DeRae wants you to have a mistress.
I do not want you to have a mistress.
So we can have more content to watch on Netflix.
Yeah, well.
DeRae is team content here. Don't fault him.
Hey, be careful out there, folks, and go into it with a level head. It's not all sunshine, rainbows, and a love story.
So if you're listening to DeRae, I guess what he's trying to say is if you do take this approach, understand the risk.
Yeah.
I don't condone this approach. I think that if you're unhappy, you're unhappy. Move on.
Okay.
I know that's easier said than done to get out of the situation. I mean, there's a reason why you see abuse that's happening constantly in relationships, and people can't get out of abusive relationships because there's something tying them in.
Yeah.
But I think, you got to look out for yourself. And if that means sticking through a marriage, fine. If that means divorcing, fine.
Divorce is the last resort. Once you get married, you stay married. You exhaust every avenue to stay married because you went through all the trouble to get married. If that means that you need to go snag you a Mr. or a mistress, I'm not judging you. Just be careful.
And that's Cautious Coffee.
Till next time.
See ya.